Hello and welcome back to the next episode of this tutorial series. So for this one we're going to go over Half-Life After Effects, which is what allows me to make all of these beautiful camera shots. And if you don't know what smooths are just another word for the cinematic shots where you're not forced into a first-person perspective. So for this episode, we're going to go through installation of HLAE step by step. After that, we'll hop into game and show you how HLAE works and how to use it. Anyways, I've got links here for HLAE. You're going to want to go ahead and just pick the latest version here. Go ahead and download that. And Casting Essentials, just go to that link. Same thing. In any case, go get those downloaded and hop back to this video when you're done. Alright, so I've extracted my HLE with 7-zip. I think this will run setup if I click it. Oh, it's already set up. Nice. If you're setting HLE up for the first time on your computer, you may need to just download this HLAE setup executable as well. Once you've got HLE opened up, you want to go to Developer and Custom Loader. You can launch CSGO and I think some other source stuff by default, but to launch it with TF2 you need to go to Developer and Custom Loader. Looks like this retained my settings from the old install, which is really nice, but if you're doing this for the first time, you want to make sure you select your HL2 exe, so your Team Fortress game file basically. So go to your program files, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, Team Fortress 2, and select HL2 exe. In the command line here, you'll want to put these launch options. Again, once you learn more about these, you can probably tweak them to your liking, but this is a good way to start. The only other thing on this page is you're going to want to inject AFX hook source, which sounds strange, but it's basically just hit browse. Go to wherever your HLE folder is. In my case, it's here. Find the file AFX hook source and click open. No, I don't need two of these, so I'm just going to delete that one. When you hit OK on this page, it actually launches the game straight with HLAE. Now we want to use this in combination with the Lawena recorder, which we covered in the last video. So I'm just going to X out of this for now and have it over to Lawena. So open up our Lawena because there are a couple things we need to set in here before we can use that with HLE together. First thing is go to launch mode and select this option, launch using HLE with insecure. Now this is a good moment to note that if you try to join any VAC secured server with HLAE on, you will get VAC banned, so please don't do that. I think this is still all set up for me, but if you're doing this for the first time, you'll probably have to select your HLAE executable, and that's as simple as just, again, finding wherever your HLAE is and selecting that and hitting open. Alright, so there's still a little bit of setup we have to do in Lawena, but I'm going to pause there for just a sec and go and set up Casting Essentials, which I've already got here, but I'm just going to go to the folder and talk about what you need to do. So once you download CastingEssentialsRed, you'll want to extract it in your custom folder. It should look something like that. Pretty straightforward. Now the one thing you need to do to make Casting Essentials compatible with Lawena and another custom HUD is to go into Casting Essentials resource and delete your UI folder. I've already deleted mine, and that just prevents it from showing up as type HUD in Lawena, and thus preventing you from using it with another custom HUD. Now why do I need Casting Essentials, you may be asking? Like, isn't that just for a spectator tool for casting? Well, yes, mostly it is. But there are some cool tips and tricks that will help with recording Fragmovies sometimes. The one you'll use most often is just the ability to make the player you're spectating's kills and assists highlight in the feed as if you're watching from their point of view when you're using an STV demo. There are a couple commands you need to enter to get that started, but it's really simple to do. So it'll be these two lines. C local player enabled 1, C local player track spec target 1. If you put it in this custom settings folder, these are just commands that will automatically execute when you start TF2 through Lawena. So if you put it in here and hit OK, it'll save it, and TF2 will automatically execute these commands when you start the game. And that's all the setup you need to get that highlight on STV demos. Pretty nice. Alright, so you might be wondering what all these commands are. And these are all commands related to Half-Life Advanced Effects. So you can always type these in console and game, but setting them to a bind makes the process a lot faster and easier. The keys these are bound to are kind of arbitrary. They're just existing keys that don't really conflict with other ones you'll be using. If you want to change these to stuff that better suits your preference, like there's nothing stopping you, just make sure you're not overriding other binds you use while movie making by accident. In any case, you'll want to just copy and paste these for now. You can always change what they're bound to yourself later. But for the purposes of this guide, I'd just say copy and paste what I have here into your Lawena custom settings. Now that we've got all that set up, we should be good to hop into game and start experimenting with Half-Life After Effects. So now we're in game. One thing you'll want to do to make sure you've got everything properly set up is just to start typing merv in console. You should get a list of commands here, starting with like merv ADR, merv aim, etc. And that's just doing that checks to make sure you loaded this AFX hook source thing properly. Because if you haven't, it won't show up. Anyway, just like our previous video, select a demo you want. I'm just going to choose a kind of semi-random one here. Sure, this one. And load in. So one thing you'll always want to do for smooths is type in CL draw HUD 0. That just prevents the filter Alright, much better. Now maybe notice that I'm pausing without pulling up the demo UI. That's because I have a key bound to demo toggle pause. So instead of having to hit Shift plus F2 to open up the demo UI and click pause and resume each time, I can just hit my toggle pause bind. So this will come in handy when you're doing smooth, so I'd recommend binding something. It's already bound in stuff. I had you copy and paste to the key U, but obviously you can change it at your whim. So we've got a tick here, and we're going to make a smooth. I'm going to start by slowing this down just so it's easier for me to get the camera in position while I'm doing things. And what you'll do is, with this config, you'll double tap X. This will put you into merv input cam mode. And this will be the same as typing merv input camera, which enables camera input mode, which allows you to do all your smoothing, basically. So I've got a bind for this, but I'm just going to do it manually so you can see what's happening. And now I can move around freely even if the game is paused. I'm going to take a quick tangent to mention that there's a list of binds in the documentation that you can bring up, giving the default bindings when you're in merv input camera mode. This is part of the Half-Life Advanced Effects wiki, and I'll try to link it in the description here, but these are the basic controls for controlling your camera while you're in merv input camera mode. So while in this mode, I think I have to enable it again because I hit escape, and that takes you out of the mode. So to go back in, I'll just hit my X bind, and I'm back in input camera mode. So holding page up zooms in your field of view, and page down zooms out. You can roll the camera with Z and X, which can make for some really creative stuff. Have a steady rate of turning up or sideways, or both, if you use your arrow keys. And one of the most interesting things is that you can increase the speed at which you do all these things, or decrease it by using the plus and minus keys on your numpad. So say I want to zoom in, but this is too slow. When I hit plus, it doubles the rate at which I zoom in, and I can hit it again as many times as I want. Personally, I'm a fan of really zoomed in shots. That's completely personal preference though. So with binds that I've got set up, you'll want to first of all make sure that you haven't accidentally put in a camera location where you don't want one. Just hit your V key a few times, because since I've bound this to Merv Cam Path Clear, Merv Cam Path Clear, and that just basically deletes any cameras you had set up previously, and so you can start fresh. Now, to add the first camera of whatever smooth you want to make, you have to obviously decide where you want to start. I think this is probably an okay place to start. I'm going to use page up to zoom in a bit, and let's say I'm going to follow this scout for a little bit, this red scout. So I'm going to set up my shot. Give me a moment. Alright, so I think this is kind of what I want my framing to be for the first part of this smooth. So I'm going to hit my C key, which executes the command Merv Cam Path Add. That adds essentially a keyframe to your camera. So I hit my C key and boop. That's my first keyframe. Now I'm going to unpause my game, pause it again at the next moment I want to have a keyframe, reframe my shot, and repeat the same process. Oh. Okay, so he just got that other scout out of the air. So I don't want him to go through the camera, so let me reposition again. Because that was kind of cool, I want to catch that. And I'll hit my C key again to set another camera keyframe point. Now these won't be reflected until you replay the smooth again, which you'll see in a sec. We'll go with that. You can always come back and add another camera point later if that's not accurate enough. And for this last one or two, let's maybe get a good look at this loadout. Okay. Now, once you have, I think it's, the default is either 3 or 5 keyframes, you can go ahead and hit B, which essentially saves everything you've just done into the smooth. So I'm going to do that and hit B. The way I have it set up, it prints out saving cam path OK, loading cam path OK, and if you see those, that means it worked. Now to watch what we've done, you want to go to just before you started your smooth, so make a note, go on back, and put the speed down to what you want to watch it at, and once your game hits that tick again, you should see the smooth start. There we go. And that's our smooth. So that's the core of how to make a smooth. Just wanted to know that. That's probably all you need to know. I'm going to give out a few tips and tricks. So if you want to know more, stick around and I'll share some ways you can improve your smooths. So you may have noticed that when we played back our smooth, there's a big chunk in there where we're kind of just looking at this red container here, and nothing was really happening. Our camera points didn't seem to, well, we didn't have our star of the shot in frame. So one of the cool things about HLAE is that you can actually go through the smooth again and add another camera point or more wherever you need one. So here, since we started to drift away, I can actually hit my MERV input camera bind, so X again, twice, and now I'm back over here and I can put in another camera point with C, and maybe that'll track better. I'm going to go ahead and hit B again to save that, opening up my console with tilde to just make sure that's saving properly, and let's go see what that looks like. Okay, so we're still moving a little fast over towards this side, but we see our Star Scout in the frame a lot more, which is what our goal is. I don't believe there's an upper limit to the number of camera points you can add, so I do find that like going more minimalist with cameras is better, since how smooths work is that you select keyframes and the game, or in this case HLAE, automatically tries to predict the camera points in between your keyframes. There's actually an in-game way of doing this, which I think Beater went over in a really old video that really visualizes kind of how it works. So I'll throw that up here for a sec, but it was really work intensive. You had to hit drive and open another like window. Yeah. HLE is just a far superior way of doing it, but once you're satisfied with your smooth, you can go through it and just use the standard Lawena recording process. Go to the point you want to record, hit play or your new pause, unpause bind, and hit P when you want to start recording. Now, it's important to keep in mind that Lawena will always record at a real-time speed. So even if you're playing back your demo at 10% speed, your Lawena recording is always going to be at 100% speed. So if you want to get a shot in slow-mo like this, you'll need to increase your Lawena and AVI recorder frame rate accordingly. So, for example, if I wanted to have the shot at 10% speed in my editing software, but still have it be at 60 frames per second, I would need to record at 600 frames per second. Pretty simple math. One of the cool things about HLAE is that you can actually use it to make smooths, including your own player model, in first-person demos as well, so POV demos and not just SDV demos. Process is almost exactly the same. The only addition is that you're going to want to type in third person in your console before you start making your smooth. Again, type in CL draw HUD 0, or maybe make a bind for that if you're into that. Hit X and you zoom in around. The only note I'd have is that the minus key on your numpad keypad is by default bound to first person mode with this setup, which is kind of annoying. I'll have to hit third person again to get it back to the third person view model, but I should probably fix that, but I'm too lazy to at the moment. So just keep that in mind if you're using my specific setup, because you may encounter your smooth and be like, oh, why are my player's arms just floating there instead of his whole body? Well, that's why. I may post a part 3 of this series with just a bunch of tips and tricks I know, but this is basically all you need to know to make some cool frag movies with TF2 in 2020. I will note that there have been some cool new tools developed, not in the past year or so, but relatively recently, where people are now able to use Lawena and HLAE to record data straight into Source Filmmaker, which removes a lot of the work behind recreating a scene in Source Filmmaker. It's a really cool tool. Antlers already has a great tutorial for that, so I've linked that in the description. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please let me know if you have questions or if there's anything else you want me to cover, and I will if I know about it. Thanks, and have a good day.